Okay, I think I'm live. Give me a second. Just let me double check this very quickly. Okay, am I coming on? This is going to be interesting. I just realized I forgot. Okay, just give me a second. I think I'm live. Okay, there you go. Fingers crossed this works, guys. And for those of you that know me, which is everyone on Twitch, I'm sure, except for the 11 people who've followed me since I started plugging this. My name is Jackie M, and I am a Malaysian street food specialist, more broadly Southeast Asian and Asian cook, basically. I used to own a Malaysian restaurant here in Sydney, Australia, which is where I'm broadcasting from. And I was born and raised in Malaysia. And this is my first ever Twitch broadcast. Fingers crossed this all goes well, but let me know if there's any problems. And hello to everyone who's watching this elsewhere. I like Twitch because I haven't actually used it, right? I like it because of all the bells and whistles I can incorporate into this broadcast. But I, outside of Twitch, have been broadcasting live for the last 4.5 years, actually, ever since Google Hangouts on Air started out. I've been broadcasting on Google Hangouts on Air, subsequently everywhere else, basically, except Twitch. So I only just discovered Twitch. I haven't even checked out other people's broadcasts, except for like the odd minute or two that I've hopped on. I'm not a gamer myself, I am a cook. So I'm going to be showing you Asian cooking. And we're going to start off today with it comes under a number of different names, and I'm going to talk through this as I go. You're going to learn more about like Asian food and all that sort of stuff and how I come into the picture, okay? But what I'm cooking today is variously called Wat Tan Hor. That's in Cantonese, which means silky egg noodles, right? Silky egg sauce rice noodles, okay? And in Malay, we call it kway teow siram, which kway teow is actually a Hokkien word for fresh rice noodles, and siram means kind of like poured over sauce, right? Sometimes in Thai restaurants, you might come across something called latna, and that's very similar, but a little bit different, okay? It doesn't have the running egg sauce, but it does have the running sauce with it. Ingredients, okay, because I'm going to assume that most people watching this have never seen me cook anywhere else. I'm going to go a little bit slow and cover a lot of the ingredients I'm going to be using and kind of explaining them a little bit as I go along as well, okay? So, and you know what? I always struggle to figure out what level people are coming in at as far as Asian cooking is concerned, because when I first mentioned a few weeks ago, actually no, it's a couple of months ago now, about how I specialized in Malaysian food, I had someone in Europe ask me whether that was the same as Mongolian food, okay? No, it's not. You know, like I said, people come in at different levels. Other people are pretty like savvy in terms of Southeast Asian cooking, but so if I go a little bit too fast, let me know in the comments. This is still a work in progress. I basically set up my stream myself, so there are going to be things that I hope to be able to finesse over the rest of this series, okay? So I'm going to incorporate maybe the chat when I finally get people actually joining me in my broadcast and talking to me live, right? So I can actually see what you guys are saying and all that. Just anybody here? Hey, thanks for hosting. Okay, I need glasses, okay. But anyway, Wat Tan Hor, right? You can see a picture here on the screen. I'm just going to enlarge it a little bit. This is one version of it, okay? You can see it there. Now, this is basically the runny egg sauce, fresh rice noodles, and this, in fact, is actually a dish that I cooked up in my restaurant back when I had my restaurant. So just excuse me a bit. Yeah, so that's one version of Wat Tan Hor, but that's generally the version that most people are familiar with. Like I said, there are a few different takes on this particular dish, simply because there are a lot of crossovers with Southeast Asian and Asian cooking, right? Because where I come from in Malaysia, I know it sounds cliche, but Malaysia is essentially a melting pot of a number of different cultures. quite a few different cultures, but predominantly the Malays, the Chinese, and the Indians from South India, right? So our cuisine is influenced by all these different cultures and different cooking styles, and yeah, and there's a lot of nuance in between it, right? So this particular dish is essentially some contribution of the Chinese immigrants into Malaysia, of which well, my family was one, right? So you would find this, very similar offerings, like I said, in Thailand. You'll find them in most places where you get Chinese people, right? Including China, Hong Kong, right? So if you go to a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown here in Sydney, Australia, you will find that dish as well. So that particular version uses basically scorches the fresh rice noodles, but it does so in a way without coloring it, okay, which is kind of like the Cantonese preferred version. Now, I'm just going to switch cameras because that's one of the bells and whistles I like about this dish. So here we go. This is just a close-up. Like I said, guys, don't kill me. This is a work in progress, so I'm going to move things around. I'm going to set up my scenes properly and whatever. And before I go on any further as well, I want to give a shout out to Rode Microphones, who supply me with the microphones I use in my live broadcast, and to Lenovo Australia, who provide me with the computers I use to run and to manage my broadcast. I'm using a Y700 gaming laptop for my broadcast here today, and I'm using a Lenovo Home 500 to monitor the calls and actually watch myself on screen, right? So those are kind of the key features of what I do. And different is better. This is the new hashtag we're using for Lenovo, right? And I really like that because different is better applies to a lot of aspects of my life. And I'm going to talk a little bit further as I go along about ideas that I have for this particular series. And hopefully everything will go well. Just give me a second, and I'm just getting a comment here. Okay, just give me a second. Okay. Now, if you've got any problems seeing me, let me know. Hey, how you doing? Okay. I've got someone saying that they're trying to watch and it says that I'm offline, but I'm assuming other people aren't having this problem. Okay. So let's get into the noodle aspects, because noodles, I can really, in fact, create a whole series around noodles. And I get people, for those of you who don't know me, right? Because I used to own a restaurant, and in fact I do still sell food once a week at a market, my food production has kind of scaled all the way down, because apart from everything else about what I do, I'm also a single parent of a Down syndrome toddler, which is why I gave up my restaurant, right? So in fact, 4 years after closing my restaurant, I still get people contact me about Asian food, Asian cooking and all that, right? But noodles, I had someone ask me this, what sort of noodles do I use for my stir fry, right? And this is what it looks like. I hope you can see this over here. Just let me hold this up. This is one brand, Eastern Star Foods, right? And it says rice noodle. And in Vietnamese, it says Tan Hor, right? Okay, and the reason why it's got Vietnamese print is because here in Sydney, Australia, a lot of our Southeast Asian ingredients are basically the contribution of the Southeast Asian immigrants, and in particular ones from Vietnam and those sort of countries. So a lot of the things like noodles that you can buy fresh are in fact produced by Vietnamese manufacturers nowadays here in Sydney, Australia. Maybe different parts of the world, but certainly in the case of Sydney, that's the situation. And rice noodle, unfortunately, is a little bit general, right? You're going to find a lot of different types of noodles that are labeled rice noodles, and it confuses people a little bit. But rice noodles simply means noodles that are made with rice flour, or more fundamentally, rice that's been ground to a flour, okay? So you can get rice sticks or rice vermicelli, they're all made with rice flour, yeah. brown rice. So this is one version of rice noodles. These are what we call fresh rice noodles. And more specifically, you want to drill right down. There are different types of rice noodles, some that are cut thick, wide, and some that are cut skinny, right? And really, look, you get to the point where it's almost like a personal preference, but for this particular dish, I use the wide cut noodles. Just let me find my gloves. Hang on a second. And like I said, if you've got any questions at all to do with Southeast Asian cooking, Southeast Asian food, just pop them in the chat and I'll try and get to them during this broadcast, and failing that, I'll get back to you afterwards, okay, or perhaps address them live on air in my next show. And for those of you who haven't checked out my Twitch profile, in case you're watching this somewhere else, all the panels are in my Twitch profile, including the schedule for my broadcast. Okay, so anyway, fresh rice noodles, if you live in Sydney, Australia, or most parts of Australia, your Asian grocery store is where you will find this. These are not usually refrigerated, okay, and I'm just going to take it out so you can have a look, see what it looks like. Now, these are not usually refrigerated if you buy them in an Asian grocery store, because they go through them so quickly that, you know, they don't really need to refrigerate them. I have, since buying this, I have in fact refrigerated it myself, okay, so if you can see this, here you go, just let me see. Okay, I'm hoping the audio is working okay, because someone's saying there's an echo, but this is what fresh rice noodles look like. Just let me quickly check and see. I'm sorry guys, like I said, this is my first time ever broadcasting, and I've been doing broadcasting on Twitch, and I know my videos just disappeared, but just bear with me because I'm just standing to the side here. But let me just see. Okay. Okay, cool, right here. Audio issues, just let me quickly check and make sure that I'm not getting feedback elsewhere. And thanks for your patience, guys. Just let me make sure. Okay, what have I got set up? Microphone. Okay. Okay, I hope this works. Let me know how this is. There is a delay. Okay. Just okay, testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay. My problem is that there's a delay between when I stream and when it actually broadcasts. So, okay, let me know. Okay, it should. Okay, let me know. Let me know when it changes. Okay, testing. I am hoping you can hear me now. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay, I'm going to reverse the changes I made earlier because apparently you still can't hear me. Okay, how's this? Okay, how's the audio? Logitech, mine in, and I'm going to just, the input is muted. Okay. Okay, so apparently it's okay now, guys. Thanks for your patience, by the way. Hang on, let me have a look. Audio back on. Great. Thank you, guys. Right, okay. So fresh rice noodles, pick them up from your local Asian grocery store. Try not to look for them in the refrigerated section if you're in Sydney. They get away with selling these at room temperature. But if you go to Coles or Woolworths or any of your Western supermarkets, they will likely be refrigerated because of, you know what I mean, because Westerners. So this is what it looks like. Fresh rice noodles. They cost a couple of bucks, or maybe about $2.50, $2.80 a pack, depending on where you pick them up from. Okay, so we're back in business. And as far as ingredients, I'm going to throw in some seafood, and I realize I need veggies, which I'll grab from my fridge. I don't know what some of these I do. Okay, now let's get into this. And apologies for the delay, guys, and thanks for your patience. I'm just going to heat this up. You notice I'm just using a dinky little portable stove over here, using a gas canister. Look, when you're doing stir fries, ideally you want a decent heat generated, right? And a decent, like a high pressure stove. But most of the time you can get away with just using a small little portable stove like this. So part of my whole thing with Asian cooking is that I want to show people how they can recreate this at home without having to think that they need to be cooking in a restaurant kitchen, right? So you can see it's just smoking, and as far as the wok, I'm using this is a really thin iron wok. You can pick these up at Asian grocery stores. Now, because I want to scorch the noodles, I'm using a thin wok because I want the heat transfer to be really, really good. But generally, when you're cooking curries or anything stewy or something like that, just your regular thick non-stick wok or pan should do the job. So it's smoking now, nothing in here at the moment. I'm just going to now put some oil in here, okay? So that's what you want to do when you're trying to scorch something. Okay, now you want to throw in the noodles. Okay, here you go. Now, the other thing I try and tell people when you're cooking stir fries, especially stir-fried noodles, fried rice, and all that sort of stuff, the trick is to cook them in small quantities, right? You've got a family of 6 to feed. You're going to have to cook this like probably 6 times each day, because ideally you want to be able to cook everything individually, because the more bulk there is in your wok, the harder it is for the heat to be able to work its way through the ingredients. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm looking to scorch this a little bit. You may struggle with scorching it if you're cooking this on a regular electric hot plate, but even with this, right, what you want to do is just spread it out a little bit. Don't have too much oil in it, and don't mix this up too much, okay? I know from having run cooking classes and dealing with people, teaching them how to cook for many years, that a lot of people, when they do stir frying, they either forget to stir it or they stir it too much, okay? So you don't want to just keep going like this, because the more you agitate it, the less efficient the heat transfer will be, okay? So you want to strike a balance between not burning your food and essentially just moving it around enough and letting it scorch a little in the process, okay? Now, like I said, because I'm just using a little, what is effectively a camping stove, you're going to find that this isn't going to give it the nice scorched color that you want. So what I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to throw in, give it the noodles a little bit of color, and this is an ingredient I'm going to add to this, and if you're going to be following my series, you're going to find that I use this quite a lot. I'm just going to hold this up to the camera. Okay, this in small English print here says cooking caramel. Okay, this is used a lot in Asian cooking. Anything that looks black or whatever, or dark color, invariably will have this. A lot of Westerners confuse this with kicap manis, which is a sweet soya sauce or Indonesian sweet soya sauce. It's not Indonesian sweet soya sauce. Okay, this is what we used to call growing up. Okay, this is what we used to call growing up thick soya sauce, okay? But at some point in time, somebody decided to call it cooking caramel. I don't know why, maybe a marketing thing. I'm just trying to move into camera, into view of the camera. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this into the noodles here. That's probably a little bit more than I would have liked to add. But a little of this goes a long way. And this gives it that nice caramelly color. Now, the other thing about this is essentially a cross between soya sauce and, well, it's got a bit of sugar in it, okay, but it's got coloring as well to give it that dark color. I'm just going to transfer this onto a plate. But this is in fact similar to kicap manis, so you can't find this use kicap manis by all means. But kicap manis or sweet soya sauce is sweeter than this, and also less intense in its color. Okay, so you just got to balance things out a little bit. Take all these into consideration when you're trying to use ingredient substitutes. So that's that. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about prawns and about peeling prawns and all that sort of stuff, because like I said, you know, sometimes I get ahead of myself and assume that people know more than it turns out they do. Prawns, right? This is actually my own personal stash, obviously. You can see them here. It's a little bit manky, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so these are fresh prawns, and if I'm cooking for myself, these are the only type of prawns I would use. I wouldn't use pre-frozen or pre-peeled prawns or pre-cooked prawns. I only use fresh prawns, right? So fresh prawns, and if you buy them at your fish shop, what you want to do is freeze them and then only take them out about 5 minutes before you're ready to use them, and run them under your tap for about 5 minutes, right? Cold running water, don't use hot water because you don't want to end up cooking it. Just on a fairly slow trickle. Within 5 minutes, If it's a boxer size, I promise you it will defrost in time for you to use it in your cooking. Now, I cheated. I actually stuck this in the fridge yesterday, which is why it's looking a little bit black. But if you were to actually freeze it and then take it out only 5 minutes before, you wouldn't get the poor black patches on it, okay? So I'm just going to peel this. Like I said, not everybody knows how to peel prawns. So this is the prawn like this, right? And you want to peel it. What I do is I remove the head first. And to do that, I just use a finger and just lift up basically the gap between the head and the body. Just lift it up like that. And then, so I've got the head lifted up, and then at the bottom here, you've got these feelers. You want to actually just lift that up at the bottom, and then just gently kind of like pull it out, okay? So that's the head. And now what you're left with is just a bit of the flesh where the head was. If you were to just break off the head, you're going to lose out on like a fair amount of the prawn meat over there, right? So being Asian, I'm very cheap, so I try to get as much bang for my buck as possible. So the rest of it is just pretty simple. When you get down to the bottom, I like to remove it. I know aesthetically I should probably leave it. Look, I'm going to leave the tail on, so forget what I just said. So I'm just going to break it off where the tail is. So I've got all of this completely peeled off, with just a little bit of the tail left on just for aesthetics, okay? So I'm just going to put this here. And just to repeat this again, so here's the prawn. First of all, just lift this up like that, and then flip it on the underside and just pick up this batch of like feelers just right below the head. And then you want to just pull it up and then pull it off like that, okay? So again, you've got that little bit of flesh over here, if you can see it, and then just from here, you want to just lift them up, break them off, turn it around, break them off, and again, so there you go, that's your second prawn, and I'm just going to do one more. And again, if you've got any questions, hit me up. If I don't see them, like I said, I've got, I'm old enough that I need glasses to be able to read, okay? So I haven't got things set up properly yet where I can actually catch things quickly, so bear with me. Just putting this away, I'm going to go and dig up some vegetables for this. Okay, so I'm back. Here you go. Now, vegetables, these have already been cut up, okay, but these are essentially toysum. You can see it. I cut them up and washed them up yesterday because I was using them obviously for something else. So the way you would cut them up, I just basically use a knife and just like, you can imagine a bunch of toysum, cut off the bottom bit, throw it out, and then the rest of it I just cut into 2-inch lengths, okay? And there you go. Now, as far as Chinese greens, it's a bit of, again, it's kind of like, just as with noodles, it's a bit of a personal preference thing. I like to use these toysum for this particular dish in any case, right? And if you like baby bok choy or something else, by all means use those as well. They'll work perfectly fine. So what I want to do now, the other ingredient I'm going to throw in are some scallops. You can see them over here, okay? So these scallops, I've actually zapped them for about 3 minutes in the microwave because surprisingly, this is frozen scallop. I'm always checking out new products on the market and testing them out in my recipes. So with my Twitch broadcast, don't expect everything to turn out perfectly, right? Sometimes, like I said, because I'm testing out new recipes and new ingredients, they may not taste as great as how you anticipate them to do. But this is a batch of frozen scallops that I bought a few weeks ago, and I've had most of it. I wasn't particularly impressed with them, right? Because there's some suspicion that some people online were actually, in fact, claiming that these are not actually real scallops. I don't know. But in any case, it's seafood of some variety, but certainly made to look like scallops, and I'm going to use them up for this particular dish. Okay, so now what I want to do, okay, I've got the noodles over here, if you can see it. Like I said, if you didn't put that thick caramel sauce, you would end up with basically pale looking noodles. That's what was in that picture I showed you guys earlier. But I thought I might just stick a bit of color in it. So that's one version of Wat Tan Hor that you might find. Okay, the pale version, in all honesty, you would probably find in Hong Kong restaurants or Cantonese restaurants, right? And the noodles with the dark hue, you would find probably more likely in Malaysia. If you're eating in a Chinese restaurant in Malaysia, that's what you will find. To make the sauce, now I've got some garlic over here. This is just minced fresh garlic. Everyone should be familiar with that. Okay, so I'm just heating up the wok again, and it's smoking up. I'm just going to throw in the garlic very quickly, and I'm going to add some chicken stock to this, because I happen, as part of my business, to have a lot of chicken stock lying around in my fridge most weeks. Okay, so this is just heating up, just adding a little bit of oil, okay, and throwing in some garlic. I like my garlic, guys, so I use quite a lot of garlic in my cooking. So this is probably equivalent to about 2 cloves of garlic, if you can see it here. Just let me move this a little bit closer to the camera. Like I said, don't give me too much of a hard time about camera angles and all that. I'm still trying to finesse everything. I'm a bit of a one-person show. Now with garlic, when you're frying it in a wok, you've got to be careful that you don't end up burning it. I'm going to throw in the scallops now. When you're doing a stir fry, as far as the garlic is concerned, you want to brown it, but not burn it, okay? And there's a little bit of a tipping point there, so sometimes, you know, you just got to be a little bit careful. If you're using a high-pressure stove, like I would if I were running my business, I would, in fact, actually oftentimes put the other ingredients in to bring down the temperature a little bit before I throw in the garlic. There's no fixed rule as to how, what order you put them in, okay? Now, throw in the prawns. I know I didn't devein them, but this is for personal consumption. But if you want to devein your prawns, by all means, go for it. So throw these in. Now, chicken stock. Now, this is actually a chicken stock concentrate. You can see it, okay? Big bucket of it. So I'm not going to use too much of it in here. Just going to add a bit more oil to this. So chicken stock concentrate, I'm going to use just about half a cup here. And I'm going to top it up with some water, okay? Got the water going. So you want to cook up the seafood, and when it's nearly done, you want to then add in the Chinese greens, okay? Now, if you want to really finesse this some more, oftentimes, because I'm doing this so quickly and I'm just really kind of doing this for myself, I don't bother. But if you want to be really pedantic about this, you should, in theory, separate the stalks, right, from the greens, okay? This is not quite green. So usually if you were really pedantic, this would get thrown out. But like I said, personal consumption, so I'm not going to bother. But generally, growing up, cooking Asian food, you know, just even in the family, you are taught to separate the stalks from the leaves, and then to throw in the stalks a few seconds before you throw in the leaves, because the stalks are tougher and they just take a little bit longer to cook. Again, I'm not going to bother with this. Now, as far as seasoning, so this stock is unflavored, right? And I'm going to season it now. So I'm just going to hang this up a little bit further. Pepper, I use a fair bit of pepper. Okay, so there's just white pepper in here. Let's throw it in to my mix. Now, if you don't have chicken stock, you can actually just use water in here, okay? So don't stress out about not having chicken stock. And in fact, the last time I cooked this, I used prawn stock. Whatever you've got lying around, otherwise just use water. That will work perfectly fine. In fact, when I make this for my restaurant, I use water, okay? Now, this next ingredient is a little bit controversial, but I'll explain a little bit more about it, because you're going to hear me talk a lot about this. I'm not getting paid to flog this ingredient, but I probably should. This is what it looks like, okay? It says Knorr chicken powder, okay? And it's got, it says traditional Hong Kong recipe. And if you go to any Asian grocery store, right, Asian outlets, you will find rows and rows of this. Certainly out my way, I do anyway. There are a few different brands. Knorr is the one that I use. I have been using for many years. And within these different brands, right, there'll be different versions of them. Like I said, this one says traditional Hong Kong recipe. There'll be others that might be your supreme chicken powder or whatever it is, but they're essentially the same thing with minor nuances. And what it is essentially is kind of like, if you can imagine stock cubes that are crumbled, okay? So these are like stock cubes, but nicer. In Malaysia, the chefs cheekily call this the magic powder, okay? And the reason why it's controversial is because it contains MSG. Not all chicken powder contain MSG. I know, like, one of my Swedish friends told me that in Scandinavia, or certainly in Sweden anyway, the MSG is banned, okay? If you're going to follow me with my cooking, you're going to find that I'm not very politically correct as far as ingredients are concerned. So I'm not about low fat, low carb, low gluten, whatever else. I just basically, I got into the whole cooking thing because I really just wanted to recreate the food that I grew up eating back in Malaysia. So to me, the flavor is number one, okay? And number two is accessibility, how to replicate it. You know, you don't want to be teaching people something that's so hard to, so involved and so incredibly fussy to make in terms of needing special equipment, okay? So a lot of my recipes will be tweaked with that kind of ideas in mind, okay? So the prawns are pretty much well cooked. I talked too long, so I'm going to throw in the greens here, okay? But chicken powder, that's what it looks like here. I'm going to add, for this amount, I would add probably about a quarter of a teaspoon. Oh no, a quarter of a, no, okay. I put in probably about 2/3 of a teaspoon in there. It's all, the other thing I need you guys to learn as far as cooking, Malaysian food is the term agak, okay? A-G-A-K hyphen A-G-A-K, and that means to guesstimate. That's the philosophy I approach with a lot of my cooking, okay? Guesstimating. So I don't measure anything. Sometimes I go back, in fact, you know what, I was actually going through my own website because I've got hundreds of recipes there. I went back to my website to pull up a recipe that I ended up making on the weekend. I was thinking, wow, this is really, really salty. So go to my website by all means, look at my recipes, but a lot of the amounts of ingredients and all that are kind of like me thinking, oh, that sounds about right, yeah, sort of thing. And so you have to tweak them according to your own personal preference and just in case I made a mistake, okay? So this is simmering. I'm going to turn this off because, like I said, I'm talking way, way, way too much. And what I want to do now is I want to thicken up the sauce, okay? And to do that, I'm going to use some water. This is just normal tap water, okay? Stick a bit of it in here. And I'm going to add a thickening agent. In my instance, I'm using tapioca flour, okay? Okay, forget where it says caster sugar, that's cut out. It says tapioca flour, okay? Just pretend it says tapioca flour. Tapioca flour is the thickening agent. You can use cornstarch. This is tapioca starch, tapioca flour, same thing. Most Asian restaurants actually use potato flour, okay? I don't know why I use tapioca flour. I think it's just something I learned from my mom, but I'm just going to put about just under a teaspoon of this, okay, or just a level teaspoon of this with the water in there. And you want to just kind of like mix this around. You don't want to do this too soon in the cooking process, okay? You don't want to prepare this half an hour before because what's going to happen is that the flour, the starch is going to settle and you'll end up like having a hard time getting, you'll have to basically mix it in again, okay? So this is the tapioca starch, right? And I've got this simmering away, or it should start simmering away. And I'm going to throw this in. And you're just going to watch while magic happens. Now, difference between tapioca flour, tapioca starch, cornstarch, and potato starch. Okay, so this is just going to thicken up, or should do. Maybe it needs more. Let me just see how I go. I've got a lot of sauce here for the amount of noodles I've got going. So, okay, so you can see this thickening up. Now, potato starch, most restaurants use it, I'm told, because it's the cheapest of the three versions, okay? Cornstarch has less starchiness in it, I find, right? And the other thing about cornstarch for making a dish like that is that once it goes cold, it loses the thickening effect, okay? It does look like I need a little bit more corn flour, tapioca flour in here, so I'm just going to add to that. Okay, but always remember, don't add it directly. You need to just mix it with a little bit of water, okay? So again, just mix it up around. Let's throw it in. Okay, you see it thickening up? And you can use this right away, pour it over your noodles, but because I'm calling this a silky Wat Tan Hor, which is a silky egg sauce, I'm going to break an egg into this, okay? So this can be turned off. What you want to do is turn this off before you crack the egg in. Like I said, if you were making Thai ratna, you can actually just use this sauce as is now. But because I'm making Wat Tan Hor, just a variation of it, I'm going to crack the egg in here. Okay, remember the heat's been turned off, and I'm going to stir this around. Okay, and the heat from the wok should just cook up the egg, but still, because you've turned off the heat, it shouldn't overcook the egg, right? Which is what you want. There you go. So that's your runny egg sauce. And here are my noodles. And I'm just going to pour this over. In all honesty, guys, because I talked so much while I was cooking, the vegetables don't need to be cooked for quite that long, okay? Ideally, you should really just cook it for seconds. So that's your noodles with the silky egg sauce. You could actually use 2 eggs. When I did it in my restaurant, I used to use 2 eggs. So just give it a shot and let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, let me have a look. Okay, cool, right here. So, yeah, so there you go. If you've got any questions at all, post them on the chat or on social media somewhere. Just use hashtag JackieMLive, L-I-V-E, okay, and I'll try and hunt them down and answer them. Yeah, so this series, for those of you who are still hanging around, this series is going to run 3 days a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Wednesdays, you should see my Down syndrome son Noah with me because that's the day where he's not attending childcare or preschool. So that will be interesting. The Bible will be a little bit different. The schedule is on my Twitch profile, so check it out, twitch.com/JackieMFood. Recipes will be posted at my website, which is JackieM.com.au, and I'm going to stand a little bit here. Okay, just let me just switch the camera back to the front here. Okay, yeah, so guys, yeah, if you've got any questions, hit me up. Again, just a little bit about myself for those of you who caught this late. My name is Jackie M, and I'm a Malaysian-born, Sydney-based, Southeast Asian, or more specifically Malaysian street food specialist. Used to own a restaurant, gave it up to look after my Down syndrome son 4 years ago. He's now 4.5. This is one of the things that I've been doing ever since, just not on Twitch. So I am completely new on Twitch. Speaking of Twitch, I've got a feeling, I've been around the internet for a little bit now. I actually got into a little bit of a tiff with a gamer probably about, maybe 6-8 months ago now. And for all I know, he may be on Twitch and he may come across my broadcast here. So yeah, I got into it in terms of him trolling one of my YouTube videos about my appearance. So I ended up blogging about it. So it kind of got a little bit heated at some point. But there you go. So there's a lot of history behind the sort of stuff I do, who I am, and all that. And I'm going to wrap it up now because of all days, someone decided to do some construction work outside my place today. I hope you're not picking up the audio. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you again, guys, this Wednesday, Australian time, 6:30 p.m. Sydney, Australian time. And if you want a guest on this show, guys, I'd love to have you on. If you can't get to my studio, hop on via Skype and you can talk or you can cook along. And if you are anywhere near my part of Sydney, I'd love to have you in the studio and you can cook along. Remember, the hashtag is different is better, okay? So I don't care if you don't know how to cook. I don't care if you don't have 50,000 followers. I want difference. Think of how we can kind of manifest that in my broadcast. And thank you so much for all your support, guys. And I look forward to seeing you in my next broadcast. Like I said, this is a work in progress. So don't give me a hard time about how things turn out. And but hopefully we'll be able to deliver something that's a little bit interesting to everyone, a little bit different on Twitch, and for me as well. Okay, I'll see you later. Ciao.